Welcome to 100 Yards of Football. I'm your host, Vincent Turner. And today we got an NCAA Legend Special. Calvin Jones, the University of Iowa in 1954. Helping me today to break down this great young man that played football at a high level when he was in school in the mid-1950s. My man, the college and football insider. Coming from Hollywood, California, Mr. Jaimes Timas. So if you like the video today, please come in and share it. This is a special video about a very special football player. So, Mr. Timas, we're not going to hold it any longer. Talk about Calvin Jones, the
Well,
football player at the University of Iowa.
when you hear Calvin Jones, you hear a legend and what he did for the game, and not only being the first African American to grace the cover of Sports Illustrated, but he turned the Iowa program around, being a dominant lineman as an African American. So many special things about this guy. But there was a quote from Maya Angelou: "You can't really know where you're going until you know where you have been." And I'm going to take this back. He was born February 7th, 1933, on the south side of Steubenville, Iowa, the youngest of 7 children. His father died when he was 1 year old, so his mother, Talithia Jones, raised him and his 6 other siblings during the Great Depression and World War II. During that time, the struggles, and especially going through a time of hate, and this amazing athlete and individual was a standout in football. He was recruited to go to Iowa State, but his friends, they were going to Iowa to play football. And on that trip that he was going to Iowa State, he wanted to go with his friends to Iowa. So he recommitted from from Iowa State and went to Iowa. And there was this huge investigations from Tug Wilson that wanted to know why. And he conducted this investigation. And when Calvin Jones was asked why this happened, Calvin Jones told him, quote, "They treated me like a white man. And I like it here. And I'm going to stay." For me and a black man, just trying to have just trying to make it in this world, like, just to have him say that, it was very powerful to read and hear. And the more I studied and learned about this guy, the more it impacted my life. So he turned the program around in Iowa, was a standout, was getting drafted in the NFL by the Detroit Lions, but he decided not to sign because he wasn't getting paid as the same as the white man in the league. So he opted out and went to the CFL and played for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And he was the first rookie named to the All-Star game. And that's rare that ever happened in Canadian football. And that night, they were celebrating after the game. And he was an amazing standout in the game. They had a great night, but he missed his flight the next day. So he had to reschedule his flight to a later flight. And he knew that flight would crash into the mountains. And that was the last day of this amazing athlete that just was about to start his career and his life. For me, this story really impacted me because not only did he live a legacy and change what Black athletes were in sports, and gave him a chance and gave people hope. And I'm really grateful for this man for allowing that to happen. It was very sad just to hear it and to read the story, to see what he could have done, And Calvin Jones was something special.
Today has been a great day here. 100 yards of football. A lot of great videos. Started out with Logan Landers this morning covering the Braves report. And during all the times I've been doing videos on this platform for two great years with the people that's been associated with me and Kevin, the Bull Jones football coach, high school level, outstanding individual. Bobby Butler, what more can you say about him? Logan Landers, having special guests on this morning, Mr. Amos Williams out of 20 East Media, and of course, Jeremiah Long. And of course, my business partner who has stuck with me over the time, Mr. Ronnie Keebler. I can honestly say that all the athletes that I did a video on, this one has touched my heart more than any other athlete. And being from Memphis, Tennessee, an area that, let's be honest, back in the 60s, very, very violent, along with the state of Alabama, the state of Georgia, African Americans fighting for their rights. This story right here really resonates because this was no easy time for Mr. Calvin Jones. Let's be honest. He got a scholarship to the University of Iowa, but what I like about the story, he had committed to Ohio State. And he decommitted because he wanted to be with his two best friends that he played high school football with. And to stand up in 1954 among the media and among the masses and say, hey, man, I want to go to the University of Iowa because really I'm treated like a white man. But what he was saying is, the way I took it, I'm being treated as a human being. It's powerful. Then think about this. As I said, I've talked about all the great athletes, the Walter Paytons, the Jerry Rices, Steve McNair this morning. But I want people out there to really listen to what I'm finna say. Sports Illustrated came in existence in 1954. They started that August. And they've had some great African-American athletes on their cover, especially Muhammad Ali, who's my favorite all-time athlete, along with Michael Jordan. But in September, their 7th edition, they took a chance on a young man, an African-American man from the University of Iowa. That's deep, man. That's deep. In a very, very violent time in the country for African-Americans. Then think about this. That same year you had Brown versus the Board of Education, what was going down in Kansas. Read that case and you know where I'm coming from today. And then a year later, in the great state of Mississippi, when my parents were born, you had the situation that went down with Emmett Till. But what this guy done back then, and the ability to stand up as an African American, say, why I went from Ohio State to Iowa, I just wanted to be treated like a white man. Basically, he's saying I want to be treated like a human being. But think about Calvin Jones and what other people said. His junior year, he was the first African American. Before I get to his junior year, senior year, he was voted Outland Trophy winner, the first one, African American. Alex Karras, who went on and won it a year later, was his best friend on the team. Alex Karras ended up having a great career with Detroit Lions, and then in the profession that you are in right now, became a very good actor on the series Webster. And he said Kevin Jones was the best human being, the best football player I ever seen. Then his junior year, he was named the 15 All-American teams. 15. But I hope every African-American football player from Deion Sanders to Patrick Mahomes to Lamar Jackson to Michael Vick to Stephen McNair to Trayvon Diggs to Ezekiel Elliott to Dak Prescott to Aaron Donald. Y'all need this man's story and see how significant it is. Because I can sit in front of you right now with a smile, and I'm proud to be an African American doing this on social media. Because it's stories like this with Kevin Jones will make you get up and want to rise and cry and be proud. He was special, man.
Yeah.
special football player, and a 3-time All-American. And I want to say this. God is always in his plan. But the University of Iowa is one of our better supporting groups here on 100 Yards of Football. They give us much love. And I want to say to the Iowa Hawkeye Football Nation, I became one of your biggest fans and following your program. Thank you for Kevin Jones. And it's a tragedy that he was killed in a plane crash going to see his two best friends play in the Rose Bowl in 1957. It was a shame. But when we talk about great people, and I've always mentioned people about out of the state of Mississippi, and we talk about great people across this country that's really represent the African-American community, I want people to take this. Kevin Jones was very special back during the 1950s. Final words about this young man, Mr. Kevin Jones, University of Iowa, Mr. Jaimes Timas.
I just thank him. I'm so humbled to even read and watched videos about Calvin Jones. I people should just watch videos and learn about this guy and see more.
My final words about Calvin Jones, he taught me one major thing that I learned this past week studying this great football player. To be honest, I didn't even really know who he was a couple of weeks ago. It's just I stumbled on his story. His story during this time of the pandemic, doing everything that we're going through as a country, it tells you that there's a God. Because this man overcame adversity that you never would understand back in 1954. He played at a white university, the Big Ten. He committed to Woody Hayes in Ohio State, but he said, hey, he stood up and said, hey, I chose Iowa because they treated me like a human being and a white man. And he did it at a time that you had Brown versus the Board of Education that didn't want segregation in school systems back then in the state of Kansas and throughout the United States. And I'm going to throw the South in there. And then he did it a year before the tragic situation that happened to Emmett Till down there in Mississippi. Man, he was special. And he died at a very young age. He died too soon because I would have loved to see him. What would he done after his career? And I know he would have represented the African community across the United States very well. So, my final words, we all college football fans here in the state of Georgia, the state of Tennessee, and Alabama. And we love the SWAC, the HBCUs. There have been great players there. Jerry Rice, Walter Payton, great coaches, John Meredith, Eddie Robinson. And also throughout the country, man. Herschel Walker, Bo Jackson. But if you're African American, especially male, you need to read this story about Kevin Jones, football player at the University of Iowa. And think how significant it is when I say that Sports Illustrated came into existence in the year 1954. He made their 7th edition. Think about how highly they thought about that young man. His junior year, 15 All-American teams. First black to win the Outland Trophy winner. Very special football player, man. So if you like the video today, please come in and share it. It's been an honor to talk about this young man, Kevin Jones, University of Iowa.
Yeah.
And thank you to all the people that's been part of 100 Yards of Football today, from Logan Landers to Amos Williams of 20 East Media Sports, to Bobby Butler, Florida State finest, NFL great Atlanta Falcons, and Jeremiah Long, my man from the great state of Tennessee, the same state I'm from, and to this young man, Mr. Jaimes Timas, who comes from a great family out there by way suburbs of Sacramento, California. Tremendous football player, Kyle Davis. One of the best actors. If you haven't heard out there, he's up and coming into the acting world. Thank y'all. for making my dream come true. And today has been one of my most special days in doing these videos because we ended it with Calvin Jones.
Real quick,
And
Vincent,
to Atlanta, go ahead, sir.
Oh,
I'm
I know what
sorry.
you're gonna say that. I know what you're gonna say. But real quick, I just want to thank you for your heart and your dedication for discovering and telling these stories about these athletes and in the sports world. Not only is it the sports world, but it's our world, you know. And you highlighted that,
Amen.
and you bring the love of God into every hearts of this project. So I thank you for your voice and your dedication and your heart for this.
Well, that being said, let me end it with this. We all go through life. We have ups and downs. Very competitive business, trying to get into the sports world, trying to get in the entertainment world. That's very tough. But I tell you one thing, and I thank your kind words, Jaimes, but I owe all that credit to two people who raised me. And right now, I couldn't be more blessed, man. My parents are still living. Chester Turner, who's 84 years old, and my mother, Inez, 82, for the sacrifices they made for me. But most of all, teaching me the right and wrong in this world, whether you white, black, green, yellow, and making sure that I live in a character world and my character stays strong. I'm not saying I've ever been perfect in my 61 years, but I can say this, that I'm good in where I'm at, and I'm proud. And your kind words, you just said, I owe that all that to my parents. Thank you. God bless you. 100 Yards Football. Thank you to my producer, Mr. Jeremiah Long. I wouldn't be where I'm at.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Real quick, before you were just saying something about Atlanta. I don't want to cut you off, but you got to say something about the Atlanta Braves.
I was going to say this before I say this about Atlanta. I've been doing this ever since I got here in the Atlanta area. I haven't made not probably one dime. There's been some growing pains, but in 2009, I came across a young man who's really, really been there for me so much I can't even say where I'm at. We're two young men right now. That's my business partner. I don't have a brother, but if I had to have a brother, Ronnie Keebler from Brooklyn, New York, that's amazing. A young man from Brooklyn believing in a young man from down south in Memphis, Tennessee. And my other guy I want to give kudos today, a young man from Lufkin, Texas, who has one of the greatest voices doing PA work right now. He's working with Southern University. My man, Mr. Mark Denham. If it wasn't for those two gentlemen giving me the inspiration and being brutally honest with me and being there for me, I don't know where I'd be at in doing this. And then, of course, with Jeremiah Long believing in me, hey, the world is great, man.
Yes, it is.
Now, I'm going to let you say what you want to say about the Atlanta Braves. Go ahead, Mr. Timas, to end us today.
Let's go, Braves, the world champions of baseball and of the world. The Atlanta Braves, congratulations.
If you like the video, please comment and share. We'd like to say thank you from the family of 100 Yards of Football. Y'all be blessed today. God bless. Enjoy the rest of the week.